President Trump will be in Buenos Aires, Argentina this weekend for the G-20 summit. He's expected to talk with Chinese President Xi Jinping about trade on Saturday amid increasing rhetoric about tariffs. But he canceled his other meeting on Saturday with Russian President Vladimir Putin over Russia's increased aggression with Ukraine. Steve Dorsey is in Buenos Aires for the G20. He's a CBS News correspondent and a CBS News Radio executive editor. Steve, thanks so much for being with us. The president is meeting with the Chinese president on Saturday. Here's what he had to say about it before departing this morning.
I think we're very close to doing something with China, but I don't know that I want to do it, because what we have right now is billions and billions of dollars coming into the United States in the form of tariffs or taxes. So I really don't know, but I will tell you that I think China wants to make a deal. I'm open to making a deal, but frankly, I like the deal we have right now.
So, Steve, he says he's open to making a deal, but he doesn't seem committed to a deal. Is a deal with China the main priority for the president at this summit?
Well, right now it is, especially with this meeting between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin tabled for some other time. This is an essential moment for President Trump when he meets with Xi Jinping here at the G20 this weekend because of this trade war, this tariff tit for tat. With, especially at the beginning of the year, more U.S. tariffs on Chinese imported goods in store that could jump from 10% to 25%. Obviously, you heard from the president himself. He says he's open to a new deal with China. He believes China is in the same position, but he enjoys being in a position where he has billions and billions of dollars in new tariffs.
Right. So, Steve, after that stock market downturn over the last month and GM's job cut announcement, does the president need a China deal politically?
Well, I certainly think, Tanya, he has less leverage. We've been seeing this GM decision, especially where they source their steel, domestic or in China. That will be important. But also, take a look at the stock of Apple. That's been down about 20% over the last month. They could be hit hard, especially if the president moves to follow through on those threats to perhaps increase tariffs affecting iPhones to 10%. That could really clobber Apple and its iPhone sales here in the U.S.
So let's pivot now to the president's canceled meeting with Russia's Vladimir Putin. Did he make it clear to Putin why he's not meeting with him? Or are some critics saying that the president should actually be using the opportunity to confront Russia about its actions with Ukraine and make it crystal clear?
Well, here's what the White House is saying. They say he made that decision after talking with Chief of Staff John Kelly, with National Security Advisor John Bolton, and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on board Air Force One. Before leaving on Air Force One, he told reporters that he was waiting to be briefed on exactly what happened during that decision by Russia to seize those 3 Ukrainian Navy vessels and hold captive those ships and those sailors, something he says is a big factor in his decision to withdraw from this planned meeting this weekend here in Buenos Aires. But this is important because he's essentially sending a message, Tanya. The State Department says this is a message of isolation against Russia. He is falling in line with many U.S. allies, particularly those in Europe and in Eastern Europe, who are concerned that military tensions between Russia and Ukraine could rise, and this is something they want the president to do, to stand up for them.
So the Kremlin says that it learned about the cancellation from Twitter, though there was no official emissary sent. So does this sort of indicate a fraying between the president and Putin? And why would he announce it through Twitter?
Well, obviously, he wants to make a public statement about this. He could have done this in a much more discreet way, but he wants to make this clear that this is his decision, and he stands behind U.S. allies. As you said, though, there wasn't much formal communication about that with the Kremlin. The Kremlin did just respond recently with Russian media reporting that the Kremlin says it regrets that the president canceled that meeting, but they are ready to meet with President Trump when he is ready.
And Steve, turning now to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi leader arrived yesterday in Argentina. It's the first time Western leaders will have a chance to meet with him since the death of Jamal Khashoggi. What can we expect the reaction there to be?
I think that is overshadowing, Tanya, this entire summit. His presence at the G20. Many world leaders have taken a stand opposing the murder viciously of this Saudi dissident and writer, Jamal Khashoggi, back at the Istanbul consulate for Saudi Arabia some 6 weeks ago. We've seen very little of Mohammed bin Salman here. We did see him arrive at the airport. In fact, landing in Buenos Aires, you can see his fleet of planes still parked on the tarmac. But we won't see much of him until he meets with two key world leaders. That's Emmanuel Macron of France, the president, and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Those are key players in this saga because France is obviously a key military, an intelligence partner, and Turkey is also a key ally in that region, and they've been very strong in their stance against this killing in their own country against Khashoggi.
It will be very interesting to see what comes out of those meetings indeed. Now, here's what President Trump had to say about a potential meeting with Mohammed bin Salman.
It only wasn't set up. I mean, I would have met with him, but we didn't set that one up. I'm meeting with President Xi, which is a very important meeting, having to do with trade. And as you know, I'm making about 3 or 4 meetings. We just didn't have time.
So he says he would have met with him. So is that statement a sign the president hasn't changed his stance on Saudi Arabia one bit?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that the president will be changing his stance or his tune or his support for Saudi Arabia anytime soon. Of course, him defending Saudi Arabia and the prince, despite a CIA assessment saying that Prince Mohammed bin Salman ordered the killing of Khashoggi. But this is important, Tanya, because this meeting between MBS and Mr. Trump could still happen on the sidelines of the G20. And one possible clue is the rearranging of the schedules. We've seen the Putin meeting shelved, but we've also seen 2 other important meetings between the president and the leaders of South Korea and Japan downgraded to just informal conversations. Perhaps that could be a clue that the White House is trying to free up more time for something else.
All right. Well, certainly many eyes will be on that meeting with China for sure. Steve Dorsey in Buenos Aires, thank you so much.
Great to talk to you, Tanya.